Final Fantasy XV Windows Edition is, surprise surprise, the Windows edition of the 2016 game Final Fantasy XV. It was released in 2018, developed and published by Square Enix, and contains all the bells, whistles and DLC that you could want, though please note that my review only applies to the base game. And it feels, let's go with unfinished. A large part of the game is combat, so we'll start there. It's messy. You play as Noctis, and you've also got your three Bezzy mates running around all over the place with countless enemies, wibbly effects, button prompts and damage numbers spewing out of everyone in sight. It is ridiculously hard to keep track of. It's a wonder they didn't dare make the fighting more complex than hold the attack or block button, but it's a damn shame that nothing ever feels like it connects, and I found myself running away from battles I could afford to avoid, because they ended up as more hassle than they were worth. I think it could be cleaned up. I don't think it's worth throwing away the whole system in the bin, but I do believe it could be sorted out, and there may even be a mod out there that does that. But as it stands right now, it feels like a first draft. The other main part of the game is traversal. You got three options. The first is you're playing on feetsies, but the world is so large that it's impractical, so you'll be pushed to use the other two, either chocobos, which I will grant you are actually pretty fun to ride around, but they're unlocked at a later point in the game, so you'll have no choice but to use the last mode of transport, which is your car, the Regalia. And I'm yet to see anyone get in that car for the first time and not go, oh no. Because it's essentially on rails. The driving in this game, which you do a lot of, because you can't fast travel somewhere you haven't been, and that costs in-game money, you know. Not a lot of money. In fact, it's half price in the Windows edition thanks to some sort of bonus whatever. But the driving in this game feels like a placeholder. It feels like they could have made something that involves player interactivity instead of them literally being able to put the controller down for the 5 or so minutes it takes to get from A to B, but at least the current system they have gets the job done. It feels like a first draft. So what is this game's saving grace? Is it the story? Well, no, because, right, spoiler alert, in this game near the start, your dad dies. And the performances given by the core four of Noctis and his pals are great. Certainly, they made me feel emotional, but do I give a damn about that dad? No, because we only knew him for a minute, because his whole backstory is in a film. Why? Because it feels like they hadn't yet fit it into the game, because it feels like a first draft. What about the side quests and interactable NPCs and bits in between going from dungeon to dungeon hoping you don't bump into any more of those arachnes that are just spidery enough to set off your arachnophobia? Well, they're largely kind of flat and uninspiring. And at time of writing, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and the change from collect these frocks, collect this dog tag, collect this car part, to some Norse madman wants you to lob all his possessions off a cliff is a welcome one. Guess what those missions in Final Fantasy XV feel like? That's right, the sort of unfleshed out thing that you would find in a first draft. I have to keep reiterating it because this game was in development for 10 years. 12 if you count the time from 2006 when it started off as Final Fantasy Versus 13 to 2018 when this edition came out. What the hell were they doing? Besides making all the food the prettiest I've ever seen. By the way, if you hear in 10 years' time that I've become a chef, you will be able to trace it directly back to this game. Well, I've certainly been working on making a stunningly beautiful world. From underwater cavern to living mountain, I can see why photography is such a big part of this game. It is spectacular in scale, detail, and beauty. And that's not the only thing the game gets right. To expand further upon the scale point, things feel massive and mind-blowing. There's a mission where you hunt down a behemoth, the mission that unlocks the chocobos incidentally, and you hide from it as it looms over you, and it's so cool. There are occasional moments where you can summon gods to turn their wrath on your enemies, and they're amazing. I mean, the game even basically starts off with some giant beast that flies overhead that made me chuckle in joy. But there's one thing that this game really nails perfectly, and it kept me playing a game that I've spent most of this video complaining about for 30 hours. It's the sort of thing that makes me question if I'm cut out for reviews, because I've no idea if I can convey it in a way that does the experience justice. It's the brotherhood between Noctis and his friends Prompto, Gladio, and Ignis. I'll put it like this. When the time had come for the game to end, I was brought to the edge of tears, because I'd spent so much time laughing, disagreeing, sharing meals with, travelling with, and adoring these four guys. There's a scene of Noctis accepting his fate because, huge spoiler alert, he has to die. And it's heartbreaking as the guys all sit round the campfire, tearfully coming to the realisation that they have to accept it too. Final Fantasy XV is something special. I've never played anything like it. I give it a 6 out of 10. And yeah, I know, I never go below 5, but I tend to pick out games that I think I'll like. But it gets a 6 because, sure, it's better than average, but there are far, far better games out there, especially ones that don't sexualize one of the few female characters you have more than one meaningful interaction with. But this score comes with the massive asterisk that as an experience, it's 100% one that you have to go out and play for yourself. So it's a weird score. It's a weird one. It's Final Fantasy 15. It's a wonder they didn't dare make the fighting. Really?